Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, can Indiana's food sector bounce back from a $500 million hit? A Carmel tech company looks to make life easier for independent car dealers. We spotlight Indiana's Tenderloin Lovers Trail. Trendiana details this year's food and drink trends. An effort is underway to push the importance of the COVID vaccine to minority communities. And we highlight an effort to boost Indiana athletes with intellectual disabilities. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. Indiana's growing ag bioscience food sector has taken a huge financial hit during the pandemic to the tune of about $500 million. The number comes from a study conducted by Purdue University researchers. Agricultural economics professor Jason Lusk joined Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick with perspective on what the numbers mean for Indiana food producers.
Okay, the number kind of grabs people, $500 million. Did that surprise you? How substantial is that number?
It's a substantial number, and Indiana's agricultural producers were certainly hard hit, a lot of consternation in the early part of the pandemic. It's also important, though, to put it in the context of these sectors, which are probably $7 or $8 billion for the state annually. So, yeah, 500 is a real loss, but you know, it's one that I think we've been able to work through, and we've had a little more positive news later this fall and spring that I think have put producers in a better state. But there was a lot of pain and suffering and concern this spring and summer.
Yeah, talk about that in a moment. But in particular, some of the areas that I mentioned, corn, beans, pork, dairy, and eggs, those key product areas. In particular, your research found that pork producers and also corn grain farmers hit perhaps especially hard.
No doubt that's true. You know, there's the dollars, but then there's also the pain and suffering, if you will, of the people that had to live through those experiences. I think particularly the pork sector, when you had to shut down the packing plants because of worker illnesses, you had farmers that were worried about worst case scenarios that they never wanted to think about possibilities of euthanizing hogs, that kind of stress. Those are the things you don't see in the numbers, but I think but were certainly very pronounced in the sector.
Yeah, you mentioned that commodity prices coming back, also government assistance. Perhaps those factors, will that mitigate, producers going out of business? Will that help the overall situation? It'll
definitely help. I mean, the federal disaster programs that have come about in response to CARES have pumped literally billions of dollars into the agricultural sector, so much so that, overall 2020 across the entire United States, USDA is actually expecting net farm income to be higher than it's been the last 3 or 4 years, mainly due to government payments. So I think that's helped provide a floor below where some of these losses would have hit otherwise. And then we've had some improvement in commodity prices because China's picked up some of their buying of agricultural products coming out of some of that trade war.
Yeah, Jason, I think it's interesting. We talk about the complexity of agriculture today and how things are set up. Interesting statistic. In the 1960s, the average grocery store offered about 6,000 products. Today, that number is likely more than 34,000 products. The supply chain is so complex. How does that factor into what you looked at there and really the impact here in Indiana and beyond?
Well, I think if we learned anything from this pandemic, it's that a lot of us didn't know very much about where our food came from. And even for folks like me that spend a career studying the food supply chain, we realized, wow, it's even more complicated than I thought it was. And all the steps that are required to get that product from the farm to the processor to the distributor to our grocery store, it's different for all the different products. And it involves multiple linkages in that supply chain. And it goes to show that we take a lot for granted in our food supply chain, and hopefully one of the outcomes of this is we realize how much we need to think the people that are involved in our food supply chain, whether it's that worker in the grocery store, the guy that drives the truck, or the person in the food processing plant. Yeah,
Jason, you talk about the negative impact, obviously, but you see the potential for opportunity coming out of the pandemic as well for agriculture.
Yeah, maybe the corollary of that complexity is I think there's a real opportunity. It's one of the recommendations of our report that we did with EY for AgriNovus, that there's a real opportunity to increase our collaboration here, a real opportunity to get to know the people in front of and behind you in the food supply chain so that when we have challenges like this again, we know who to call, we know what our opportunities are. We can maybe do some of that emergency and contingency planning that we weren't quite prepared for this time around.
All right, some very interesting results from a brand new report from AgriNovus Indiana. Again, that organization itself, one of the reasons why there's a bit of an optimistic outlook in agriculture in Indiana. Jason Lusk, professor and also head of the Department of Ag Economics at Purdue. Always great to have you on the show. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks, Gary.
Carmel-based Kinetic Advantage is in the business of providing technology-driven solutions to independent car dealers throughout the United States. The company, which was founded in the middle of the pandemic, has major growth plans in central Indiana. CEO Marty McFarland came on the show with more on the company's story and success.
Marty, you launched less than a year ago. You're already making some headlines. In fact, this week announcing plans to expand your headquarters in Carmel, $4 million investment, perhaps as many as 225 jobs. Talk about the reasons behind that investment.
Sure. We believe there's a big opportunity in the space, given the size and scope of the market. And my team's background, we're all experienced in this space. We created what is now the largest company in the space, and elected to kind of go on our own and stand up a new company to help with that expansion. Carmel and Indiana were a natural place for us to land. It's a great business environment, great workforce, highly motivated workforce, great educated workforce. We started out with 30 people in July. We're up to 75 Hoosiers today. And over the next handful of years, we expect to grow to, another 225 to 250 Indiana employees here locally.
Yeah, and Marty, technology is a big part of what you do, and really at the heart, leveraging technology to do what you do. Yes.
Like everything in life, everything's moving to digital, right? And it's no different in the auto business. And as you know, that's all been accelerated through the pandemic. So all of our dealers, naturally, because they're not franchise dealers, they have to go out and secure their inventory through auto auctions. Mm-hmm. Historically, that was always the physical auction, right? They go to the building and look over the inventory and buy it right in front of them live. Well, today a lot of that is done digitally, and it continues to be more so all the time. The technology that we're building is really world class. It's really the first of its kind. It's really focused on digital transactions. Dealers need to be highly efficient in securing their inventory, and funding is part of that process to make these transactions really fluid, allow them to outfit their lot, and allow that consumer to buy at frankly, a better price because of the efficiencies of.
A lot of people paying attention. Altamont Capital Partners, private equity firm in San Francisco, with a major infusion of capital last November into the company. Marty McFarland, thanks for joining us this week. Serial entrepreneur. This is, I think, your third Indiana company. We'll look forward to following your progress and have you on the show again in the future.
Thank you, Gary.
Since 2007, the Indiana Foodways Alliance has promoted restaurant trails throughout the state. The organization has more than 200 members. Inside Indiana business reporter Mary Rachel Redman hit the road to spotlight the Tenderloin Lovers Trail, stretching from Elwood to Pendleton.
Nothing says Indiana like a colossal, golden crispy pork tenderloin sandwich.
Indiana likes the pork tenderloin. That's the Mac Daddy here. I get customers all the time from South Carolina or maybe from Florida. They've never heard of a tenderloin.
And there's no better way to sample the unofficial sandwich of Indiana than hopping on the Tenderloin Lovers Trail.
We have 72 stops on the Tenderloin Lovers Trail. This is a great way to eat your way through Indiana.
My first stop, the Tin Plate in Elwood.
We start with a 10-ounce pork tenderloin, put it in the fryer, pin it down at the bottom of the fryer for a couple minutes to let it gain its shape, and then fry it to a delicious golden brown. And I'll tell you, they are wonderful. Look at that. What do you think?
That is a beauty.
Pick it up and fold it over. Look at that, huh?
Hey. And needless to say, the Tin Plate Tenderloin didn't disappoint. Next stop, Mrs. Wicks in Winchester, known for serving one heck of a tenderloin, but perhaps most famous for their sugar cream pie.
The Indiana Foodways Alliance and their trails had put us on the map a lot of people that really enjoy food tourism, and it's a cool thing to do, to go and try different restaurants with these similar foods along within our state. It supports local businesses, and it also drives some tourism to our area, which really helps our community.
And the final stop on my eating adventure, the Bank in Pendleton.
The Bank restaurant was built on the Tenderloin sandwich. It is our #1 seller every year. In this area, it's a bragging right. If you're going to sell it, you better make it the best you can do.
So what exactly makes Brammer's Tenderloin so extra special?
Well, I know what makes it different, but I'm not going to tell you what makes it different. We have to have a little bit of a secret.
But it's no secret that as the pandemic approaches the 1-year mark, it's these small Hoosier-owned restaurants that have been hit the hardest.
It's been incredibly hard. In fact, one time the only money in the bank was the government money. And then when you take off 50% of your seats, that makes it tough as well.
We are down about 40% for the year of 2020 through the help of Indiana Foodways. We have still been able to get people to come in from out of town.
When we get feedback from those local owners, they're happy. They're seeing those increased sales. We hope we're making an impact. That is our goal.
In fact, thanks to the efforts of IFA, Indiana boasts the most culinary trails of any state in America, and it hasn't gone unnoticed.
We've been mentioned in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, USA Today, Pop Sugar. So we're very proud of that. And, you know, our mission is to support those locally owned restaurants throughout the state. And we feel like the Indiana Culinary Trails is the way to do that.
Mary Rachel Redmond, Inside Indiana Business.
And to check out all 19 Indiana Culinary Trails, just head to indianafoodways.com.
As we continue to struggle through the pandemic, what are the trends we can expect in food and drink this year? Yelp's data science team used review data to find words and phrases that rose the most significantly over the last year to find out. Senior Regional Lead of Community and Marketing, Brittany Smith, has answers in our Trendiana segment.
As I mentioned, and it makes sense, in 2020, people quarantined, sheltering in place, comfort foods, takeout, carry out were the order of the day. But do you sense that possibly may be switching this year?
Certainly, yeah. We look at review data from the past year, 2019 to 2020, and we're seeing certain phrases or keyword searches that people are looking for with their food. And we all need a little adventure right now, and that's definitely no exception when it comes to the culinary world.
Good. And we're going to take, as you do each and every appearance on the show, take a quick trip around the state to show some great examples. And keep in mind, these businesses, they are most all the time entrepreneurs and innovators out there trying to make their business go. We begin with a trend of brown sugar boba.
That's right. That's right. And if you're new to boba tea, it's also known as bubble tea. It's a year-round favorite drink. It's comes from Taiwan, and there's so many flavors that are emerging, but you can find it at La Tea Bubble Tea Lounge in West Lafayette, and they have a location on Mass Ave in Indy. It's really flavorful. You can pick from all these different teas, but now you're finding it in boba flan, popsicles, and the rate of reviews mentioning boba, brown sugar boba, is up 185%.
Wow. And you can get those in Indianapolis and West Lafayette. Up next, a trend for hot honey.
Yeah, people are pouring hot honey now. This is spicy honey on waffles. I've seen it on pizza. So many different classic foods that are now having hot honey poured on it. And Nashville Spice Company in Nashville, Indiana, carries their own infused Indiana honey with habanero peppers. Give a little kick to whatever you're making. And you can actually even order their hot honey online if you want to try it at home.
Yeah, and it seems to me you're seeing fried chicken everywhere in a variety of ways. And I know that trend, you can find it at Shawnee's Secret Chicken. That's right here in Indianapolis at the International Marketplace.
Yeah, this is a really tasty one. If you're familiar with Chapati, which is a Pakistani Indian restaurant, it's actually the same owners connected, and they have made a beautiful version that's Pakistani. It's flavored with it's halal fried chicken with tandoori and spicy flavors, great for carry out. And the rate of reviews mentioning fried chicken are up 26%. So this is a good excuse to go get some fried chicken with a little twist.
All right, now we talk a trend. This is actually something that really began to spike maybe a couple of years ago. Hard seltzer and Sun King Brewery and Beer Brewery, two of the great craft breweries here in Indiana, are really selling a lot of hard seltzer.
Definitely. We saw this in 2019 rise, and then going into 2020, it keeps going up, 189% review mentions. And a lot of people are just looking for a healthier option. They're lower in calories and sugar. And Beer Brewery and Sun King have been very wise to jump on that trend. Beer Brewery specifically is offering a pina colada and a black raspberry burst flavor at their 2 locations. Sun King Brewery, which you can find it at stores or there's several central Indiana locations, also has lemonade, mango, black cherry. So there's a lot of fun options on the market right now.
All right. We have to be quick here, Brittany, but Mexican food is also trending for 2021.
Yeah, birria tacos specifically. It is a juicy, spicy or spice meat stew from Jalisco, Mexico. And you can find it at Enadina Mexican Market and Taqueria in Whiteland, Indiana, as well as several other spots throughout the state. It is delicious and very juicy. All
right. As always, a great tour around the state of Indiana with some trends for the year ahead. Brittany Smith from Yelp, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Gary.
Remember, you can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. There is a grassroots public health effort underway to promote the importance of getting the COVID-19 vaccine to minority communities in central Indiana. The Indiana region of the American Red Cross is partnering with community coalitions to address concerns about the safety of the vaccine to communities that are being hit especially hard by the virus. American Red Cross Indiana Region CEO Chad Priest and Concerned Clergy of Indianapolis President David Green Sr. spoke with Kylie Valletta in the Business of Health.
Pastor Green, let's start with you. Blacks have the lowest level of trust in the vaccine, only 14%. Give us a little bit of background or context why this mistrust exists.
The mistrust exists because of numerous items that have occurred in the healthcare sector across the country. It starts with the Tuskegee syphilis experiment that took place in Alabama. While the event took place in the Deep South, many of the people living in the North now have their roots in the South. And that experiment is something that is still talked about in African American homes. And not only do we have those historical events, we also have local events. When you consider the recent death of Dr. Susan Moore, who died of COVID-19 after complaining about racist treatment in the hospital, that also contributes to mistrust. Many African Americans have concluded you can't trust the system, and it causes African Americans to be hesitant about healthcare as a whole. It's viewed as something to be avoided and not necessarily truly a place where it's applicable and will help all people.
Okay, all right. So, Chad, the American Red Cross is really leading an effort to try to make Black people more accepting, also Latinx, of the vaccine. Explain what your goals are for the coalition, what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks, Kylie. So the Red Cross alleviates suffering in lots of ways, but we primarily do it in partnership with all the other human service agencies in central Indiana and actually throughout the state. So what we've done is leverage the expertise of these agencies who are really experts in communities to join us, not to encourage people, hey, you must go get vaccinated, but to engage in dialogue about the vaccine. We've got great evidence to suggest that when people have a chance to talk about how they are perceiving the vaccine, their intent to vaccinate, the likelihood of eventually vaccinating actually goes up. So we're looking to amplify the public health messaging around the vaccine, but do it in a way that really generates conversation at the local level. And we're doing that through all of these partners.
And you mentioned one thing off camera that I thought was really important. You said part of this is you have to honor their hesitancy. I thought that was very interesting and a good point as well.
That's right. It is not unreasonable to be hesitant and think through a process of getting vaccinated. We support people in their decision-making process, and that's the key, ultimately, to increase acceptance.
Okay, Pastor Green, trust is such a big part of this effort, and hearing from voices that these communities trust. So explain just that importance of building that trust and actually just speaking to these people, voices that they already trust. And then also, what are you hearing back from the community so far as acceptance? Is it changing at all?
Well, trust is huge. The COVID-19 vaccine cannot be seen as a transaction only. It's critical that organizations in the city such as the Red Cross, who's taken the lead, see this as an opportunity, as a bridge to relationship building. And that's what Chad is attempting to do, build relationships in the African American community, and that will begin to build trust. This relationship must extend beyond COVID-19 and look at many of the health disparities that exist in the African American community. I'm hearing that, and clearly believe this, that most African Americans know that one day they have to take the vaccine because they value the importance of family and coming back together. They will take the vaccine, but they need to be made comfortable that they can take the vaccine without any unannounced side effects. And so they need to see leadership. They need to be hearing and confirming that this vaccine is a safe vaccine to take.
All right, and you're really focusing in on three areas, the Martindale-Brightwood area on Indy's west side, the Etna neighborhood, and Gary, Brownstown in southern Indiana. Chad, only a few seconds left. Just tell us quickly what you've done so far for this coalition.
Well, the coalition is convening conversations in these communities. So both in Etna, Indianapolis, and in Brownstown, we're going to leverage those conversations for a public-facing campaign. But again, it all comes down to dialogue. And the Red Cross role really is just to bring people to the table, empower them to have the discussions. And as Reverend Green said, really talk about long-term relationships in these communities, which is the key to ensuring community resilience.
And you mentioned you'll be starting in these three areas, but you really expect this to sort of trickle down through the entire state, correct?
That's certainly our hope. Your Red Cross works all over the state. Many of our partner agencies do as well. And we want all people to be able to benefit from the conversations and dialogue that are occurring.
All right. Well, Chad, Pastor Green, thank you both for being on the show today, and good luck with the coalition.
Thank you for having us.
Since 2016, Indiana University has been rolling out its Grand Challenges initiative, a strategic plan aimed at sparking innovation and developing solutions to improve the quality of life for Hoosiers. The second Grand Challenge, Prepared for Environmental Change, began in early 2017. IU Environmental Resilience Institute Director Janet McCabe and Goshen Mayor Jeremy Stutzman have a progress report.
Janet, I'll start with you and offering congratulations because as many of our viewers may know, you were recently nominated as Deputy Administrator of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in the Biden administration. Quite an honor. Your thoughts as you begin before long the confirmation process?
Oh, it is quite an honor. I just am so humbled by it and appreciative of the opportunity to serve, assuming that the Senate confirmation process goes well, which is what we're preparing for now. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you've certainly put your heart and soul into this Grand Challenges initiative focused on climate change and the impact on communities around the state of Indiana. One thing I thought interesting, because I think the last time you were on the show, we talked about results from a survey that really suggests that Hoosiers are understanding more and more the effects of climate change and the importance of climate change.
That's for sure. And they're seeing it in their own backyards, in their streets when they flood, at their bird feeder, when the birds are coming sooner to the bird feeder and they're fewer and different kinds. Businesses that are seeing it as they deal with extreme weather. Farmers are seeing it as their fields are flooded and they can't get their crops into the ground. So it's here. And scientists at IU, Purdue, and around Indiana really have a pretty good handle on the kinds of things that we can expect here in the Midwest. So the whole point of the Grand Challenges was to face that the way Hoosiers do, and what can IU do? What resources and expertise can IU bring to help solve these problems for Hoosiers?
How is this initiative specifically? How are you working with cities and towns around the state? I think well over 24 now you're connected with. What specifically are you doing?
Yeah, so we realized that this was a niche that we thought we could fill. There are a lot of resources for cities and towns around climate change, but a lot of them honestly are focused on coastal areas or great big huge cities, and they're not tailored for the kinds of communities that we have in here in Indiana, like Goshen and Kokomo and New Albany and places like that. So we thought that we could bring tailored information to those cities from a trusted source here, their own university at IU. And we've designed some programs to deliver information to them, but also to help with capacity, because one thing that cities don't have is extra person power or money lying around to hire people. So we can bring in trained students from IU to spend an entire summer working with a mayor or city council to start documenting greenhouse gas emissions, look for sustainability opportunities, and to work with that community to build a plan.
Yeah, Mayor Stutzman, why did you engage in this process? What attracted you to engage in this process with IU?
So coming into my job as mayor, I have a biology degree, and the environment's always been very important to me. As mayor, I wanted to find a way to help reduce the carbon footprint of the city of Goshen and find any and all projects that we could do to really start addressing that challenge. When IU came to us, being part of their cohort has been absolutely amazing. It's brought us resources and allowed us to move a lot faster than we would have just on our own. We've got some great resources here in our community, and through many institutions we have here in Goshen. But being part of IU's cohort has definitely accelerated our projects, and we're getting to the point where we're now implementing, not just talking and planning. Yeah,
Mayor, is there an economic development component to this? Does participating in the focusing on the clean energy solution or solutions, if you will, does that trickle down to attracting and retaining business?
I believe it does. As communities, we're always looking at economic development and how can we better do that. Years ago, the businesses were looking at what infrastructure were in your communities that they could utilize. Then we started hearing them looking for communities that had great quality of life, bike trails, where their staff could be out and about and happy when they're not working. Now we're hearing more and more of businesses that are searching out green communities that are really forward thinking and working hard to better the environment. So there's definitely an economic development piece to these projects.
All right. It's a major piece of the Grand Challenges initiative, focusing on the environment and communities all over the state. And Janet McCabe and Mayor Jeremy Stutzman, thank you both for joining us. And Janet, good luck to you in the confirmation process as well.
Thanks so much. It's great to
thank you both.
Here.
Hoosier high school students have a new opportunity to prepare themselves for the workforce thanks to a new apprenticeship model launched by Employ Indy and Send Indiana. Modern Apprenticeship is a paid work-based learning experience that helps students earn a high school diploma and college credits while amassing work experience. Indianapolis Airport Authority Executive Director Mario Rodriguez and Employ Indy Chief Strategy Officer Marie McIntosh joined us with more.
Marie, let's talk about specifics, because there's so much focus certainly on workforce. This is a paid, people think apprenticeship. This is truly an apprenticeship where kids are getting work experience. Detail how it goes.
It's so exciting, really. It's such a cool new initiative for our community. But the way that it works is that juniors in high school would start a paid apprenticeship with a training company after they've chosen an occupation to be with that company. Things in IT, financial services, positions like staff accountant or junior coder or HR associate. And once they're chosen by the company to work with them, they split their time between high school and working at the company for 3 years. And by the end, they have not only a high school diploma, but also that post-secondary credit, like you mentioned, and importantly, cash in their pocket and a professional network that will help them in the long run.
Yeah, so they are actually getting that high school academic experience, college credits, as well as the work experience. Marie, is this modeled? I know it's tailored specifically to Indianapolis and Central Indiana, but is this modeled after any other programs?
Yes, we at Ascend and Employ Indy are all about sort of economic prosperity and economic mobility, and we looked to other partner organizations around the world who have done some of this work already, including CareerWise Colorado, and also the Swiss model has been a big influence in our community too.
Mario, Indianapolis Airport Authority recognized annually as the best airport in North America. You're one of 15 or 16, I think, companies so far, organizations participating. Why participate in this? Why do you want to engage in this apprenticeship program?
Well, it's a no-brainer, Gary. It really is a no-brainer. in order to stay as a world-class facility, we need world-class people. And Employ Indy and Ascend are actually providing that. This is what everybody has been asking for. And Employ Indy was able to craft an incredible model that gives us the ability to bring in students, train them, hopefully keep them and give them a career. And as our older workforce is retiring, which they are, 54% of our workforce will be retired within the next 5 years.
Wow.
So that creates an incredible void. And we didn't think about it deeply until we got to this point and Employ Indy using basically a European model, basically an Americanized European model, which is fantastic. It's giving us the opportunity to not only help these kids, but help the organization.
So, Mario, the airport, I think, a good example of some of the experiences that these young people will get. Talk about the students who will be engaged at the airport, because they could get perhaps multiple work-related hands-on experience.
Oh, absolutely. We have everything from public safety, fire and police that are specialized to airports, to engineering, construction, plumbing, electricians. I mean, like the whole gambit. This is a small city with a roving or with a moving population of about 10 million people on an annual basis coming in and out of here.
Yeah.
So you've got this incredible opportunity to do a lot of things that they may not have even thought we would do.
Marie, as we wrap up, this is the first year. It's a pilot program. You've already got 30 students in this first cohort, to 15, 16 employers, 5 school systems. Is the anticipation this will become a regular program, an ongoing program?
That is the anticipation. I mean, we're working hard with all of our partners to expand. We're already working on our next cohort of employers, and there are many who have expressed interest. We're trying to get their plans in place so that they can welcome these students in and really build on the tradition of apprenticeships that's existed for a long time in our community, but is now specific to new industries that are really growing tremendously in Indianapolis.
An apprenticeship program focused on fueling the workforce pipeline. Marie McIntosh, Chief Strategy Officer at Employ Indy. Mario Rodriguez, the Executive Director at the Indianapolis Airport Authority. Thank you both. We'll look forward to following this, a very interesting and unique partnership. Thank you.
And finally this week, participating in sports can produce life lessons that go well beyond the court or field. That's especially true when it comes to unified sports, which places high school students with and without intellectual disabilities on the same team to train and compete. Unified Coaches Association of Indiana Vice President Ryan Peppel talked about the association's mission with Bill Benner on Inside Indiana Sports.
I know you've had a long association with athletes with special needs, but let's go back to more recently. What was behind the formation of the United Coaches Association?
Well, just collaborating with a number of other coaches over the years and ways to continue to grow the sport and all over the state for unified sports in the high school setting. There were some coaches that came together at the Special Olympics convention about a year ago, and it was we came to a consensus that an association would be a great idea because all of the other sports at the high school level have a coaches association. So it only made sense that the unified sports have a coaches association. So it just kind of snowballed from there, and we met. It was a long process, but it was well worth it, and it's official. So here we are.
Ryan, talk about your background in Special Olympics. I know you were a coach of the year at a few years ago, but you go back quite a ways with your involvement with athletes with special needs.
Yeah, so I've been an adaptive PE teacher here at East Noble for 16 years now, and we were part of the unified track and field program year one in 2014, and we've had every sport since the beginning. My wife is the Noble County Special Olympics coordinator, so we're heavily involved, and we really enjoy it.
Ryan, this is not only top-down driven. The IHSA has been an incredible champion of unified sports program, but also bottom up. I mean, the IHSA student athletes, and especially the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, have virtually been involved with this from the very beginning. So it's really a very broad-based program.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In 2013 timeframes there, just before the planning into unified track and field, Mr. Bobby Cox and his athletic advisory committee, they hit it out of the park with this one. So very pleased in what they've done.
What do you hope to, in the short term, at the very least, what do you hope to accomplish with the United Coaches Association?
Well, the mission or the goal is to support, inform, and educate current coaches that have a unified sports program within their school, within their building, as well as be a resource for schools that want to start a unified program. The IHSA and the Special Olympics Champions Together program have done an amazing job at getting programs started. And we just thought, with a number of veteran coaches out there throughout the state, it would be great to have another resource to help with neighboring schools to get their programs up and running. Roughly out of the 410 ISHA membered schools, roughly 175 of those schools in some way, shape, or form have at least one unified sport in their building. So we would like to grow that number from 175 to, as high as we can get it. 410 would be great. So some of those schools have multiple sports, some only one. I know the ISHA and the Special Olympics of Indiana plan to have 6 total sports year-round, 2 in the fall, 2 in the winter, and 2 in the spring. There currently is 4, so it continues to grow. And, the Unified Coaches Association of Indiana is just going to be another resource for schools all over the state to reach out to and build their programs.
Well, Ryan, we wish you all the best moving forward, and thanks for joining us today from East Noble High School, the Vice President of the newly formed Unified Coaches Association of Indiana. Ryan, all the best.
Thank you, sir.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state, at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.